Super Mario 64, one of the most beloved 3D Super Mario games out there, and I get why. It revolutionized the world of gaming after all. Before this, we only knew 2D platformers, while the world of 3D was very much a mystery to all of us. But Nintendo showed us how it should be done, and people became hooked. But as you can imagine, people also became curious. Especially back then, when the internet wasn't in most households yet. People came across all kinds of myths, and they had no idea whether they were real or fake, and some of these even survive till this very day. And so I think it's about time to look into them. So let's dive right in. Number 15. Now we are starting off with a myth, a claim that is quite simple and also a bit useless, to be honest. Sure, it's a fun detail if it's real, but handy? No. Because according to people on the internet, you can actually hang and climb on the bottom of the first small bridge seen in Bob-omb Battlefield. This is the first level of the game, and normally you would use this thing to get to King Bob-omb. But apparently you can also jump up underneath it, and then you can hang off of it and climb. And so we decided to test this. And as you can imagine, we quickly found out if it works. And the answer is yes. It's really a thing, which is a bit odd because it isn't really useful here. But hey, it's cool to see that it actually works. So this claim is true. Number 14. Alright, sure, the previous myth wasn't really useful or anything. However, this next one, well, that one can actually save your life. Because as most of you know, Nintendo loves to hide all kinds of things around the world like 1-ups. They even did this in the 2D games. And now that they went to 3D, this didn't really change. And for this myth, we are going to look into one of these. Because apparently, if you go to the top of Whomp's fortress, you can find a 1-up by hitting the wall of the small tower. But is this real? Well, we went there to see if something would happen if we hit the wall. And we saw that it works. When you hit it, the wall disappears, and you will find a 1-up behind it, which can be incredibly handy in-game. Number 13. Sometimes in Mario games, things change. Nintendo wants to give you the feeling you had an impact on the world after all. We're used to this in more modern games like Super Mario Odyssey. But what about Super Mario 64? Well, apparently this is a thing in Jolly Roger Bay as well. Because it's said that the fog and dark sky in Jolly Roger Bay vanish after the power star from Plunder in the sunken ship is collected. But is this really the case? I mean, it could be, but many of us just don't notice. So we tested it. And yes, it's real. After completing the star, the world looks a lot better and significantly less dark and creepy compared to how it was before. So it's cool to see that Nintendo added this little detail to the game, even though it was their first 3D platformer ever. And this is just one example of stuff like this happening in the game. Number 12. Now sure, I bet some of you will say that the myths I have covered so far are too obvious, and I get why. I mean, this game is quite old, and so a lot has been covered, and a lot of people have put hours upon hours into this game. But I bet a lot of you haven't heard of this next myth, because it's quite hard to see, and even I had never heard of it. According to folks online, you can see hieroglyphs inside of the pyramid of Shifting Sandland that resemble 2D enemies and characters seen in games like Super Mario Bros. However, I had never seen this, so I wasn't sure if this was even real. And so we went there and looked at the surroundings to see if we could find anything. In the end, we found this. Some small hieroglyphs that resemble something, but we weren't sure what. However, after some careful looking, we could see certain Mario enemies on it, as well as other things. Heck, this was even pointed out by someone on Reddit, which helped us with seeing these different characters and enemies. So it's cool to see that Nintendo added this, especially because the concept even made a return in later games like Super Mario Odyssey. Number 11. Now, in Jolly Roger Bay, you will come across a number of different challenges that involve swimming, puzzles, and more. But one that I always found quite memorable was the eel. Chasing that creature to get the star near the end of its tail can be quite frustrating. However, when I was younger, I always wondered if the hole that the eel comes out of leads anywhere. Can you swim into it and somehow find a new part of the level? Is that a thing or not at all? I mean, you can even find rumors online talking about the UNAGI caverns? Well, we decided to do some testing and try to get inside of it. But we quickly noticed that this is pretty hard. There's an invisible barrier, and so you can't really go into it. And no matter what you do, you can't get past this. There are no holes in it, and you cannot enter the eel's hideout, which means that this one is sadly enough impossible. Well, as far as we know. I mean, maybe a glitch or modified ROM could do the trick. Number 10. Now, when I read this next myth online, I was immediately curious if it was in the game. According to some people, if you do nothing, Mario will fall asleep. And at some point, he will even say his entire shopping list. And I had never heard of this, even though I have played a good amount of Super Mario 64. And so we booted up the game, put the controller down, and let Mario sleep to see if anything would happen. And after a while, he did actually start to talk in his sleep, and he actually lists off a number of things like ravioli and spaghetti.
Night, night. Ah, spaghetti. Ah, ravioli. Ah, mamma mia.
Which are most likely the shopping list items mentioned by people online. So it seems like this claim is real. Number 9. When designing video games, developers tend to put stuff out of sight that they were working with. For example, certain asset that they can then duplicate to put in places in the level. This is seen in almost every game. But apparently stuff like this is also in Super Mario 64, and one of these can be found in Snowman's Land. There are claims that there's a coin in Snowman's Land you can't reach by the wooden ramp when you go up on the snowman. And so we went there to see if the coin is really there. And when we hugged the wall and moved the camera a bit, we could see it. Now, sadly enough, you can't grab it because it's outside of the actual level. But it's clear that developers forgot about this one coin. And so it is doomed to float there forever, all alone. Number 8. Now, when Super Mario 64 came out, a lot of us weren't used to the world of 3D. It was something new, and so most of us had a hard time getting used to it. And Nintendo knew that this would become a challenge. Due to this, Nintendo tried to make the beginning of the game simple, so you could experiment and get a feel for the controls. And one way they did this was by adding the 3D Mario face on the start screen. It's something that's fun to mess around with, but apparently you can do more than just pull on its face. Because if you press the shoulder buttons at the start screen, it will create an interesting effect. The screen will turn into a spiral pattern of several smaller moving images of Mario's face. But does this truly work? Well, after testing it out, we found out that it does, and it looks quite freaky. Now, I had never seen this before, so I was super surprised that this is actually in the game. Sure, it isn't much, but it's a very fun Easter egg. Number 7. One way Nintendo made the transition to 3D easier for people was by adding an actual cameraman. They had to understand the idea of camera angles after all, which is important in a game like this. And so they introduced the Lakitu cameraman, a simple concept that made people understand the whole idea a lot better. He follows you throughout the game and is actually seen in-game as well. But now the big question is, can you kill him? I mean, he is important for the game, so maybe he can't die at all. However, he is seen in-game, so maybe you can take him out? Well, we decided to try this in the mirror room, but after attempting this for a while, we couldn't pull it off. It seemed impossible to us. But then we saw a video of the Game Grumps accidentally killing him. Well, that's what it seemed like at least. Because while the camera changed from Lakitu to Mario when he killed him, this is actually a normal camera setting in the game. So it just looked like he killed the cameraman. So as far as we can see, it's impossible. Number 6. Now in this video, we have only covered one myth about secret items so far, and I thought that wasn't enough. And so for this one, we will actually look at another claim that supposedly nets you some goodies, because folks on the internet have said that the butterflies in Tiny Huge Island will transform into 1-ups if you punch them. And when I read this, the first thing that I thought of was, nah, this isn't real. I mean, I had never seen or heard of this stuff before. And so we jumped into the world and went to work. work. And while they were a bit hard to hit, we managed to actually kill one. And to our surprise, we got a 1-up. Now clearly this does work, which is insane, because this way you can farm some extra 1-ups each time you go into this world to do stuff. So next time you jump into this specific world, get yourself some extra lives by taking out some of those beautiful butterflies. Number 5. When you first enter and go through Peach's castle, you quickly find out that it's filled with Bowser's minions. But that isn't all. There are also loads of booby traps in the castle now, put there by the big bad boy himself. And one of the most famous examples out there is the room where you see Bowser's painting. But as soon as you try to reach it, you will fall into a gigantic trapdoor that opens as soon as you get close. But can you actually get past this trapdoor and reach the painting? Well, let's see if that's possible. Now we tried to do this the normal way without glitches or insane tricks, and that just didn't work. It is clear that there's some sort of invisible wall there, which you can't get past whatsoever. But when you look online, you can see that it's possible when you use a glitch like the backwards long jump, which makes sense since it gives you so much speed that you can clip through almost anything. But when you get to the painting, you will see that it does nothing. You cannot jump into it like all the others. So while it's cool that this is possible, it isn't really useful or anything. Number 4. Now, one thing people love to do in Super Mario 64, now that they have completed the game 100 times, is completing the entire game as fast as they can. And the ultimate challenge when it comes to this is 120 stars, which also unlocks something quite cool. A cannon becomes accessible, and with it you can get on top of the castle. And here you will find Yoshi, as well as a lot of 1-ups. It was a bit of an Easter egg that was put there to reward the most hardcore fans for getting every star. But, as you can imagine, some people who became incredibly good at the game tried to get on top of the castle without using the cannon. But can you even pull this off? Well, we tried it, but in the end, my girlfriend who recorded this footage couldn't do it. And so we looked online to see if others managed to pull it off. And the answer was yes. As you can see right here, with some good jumps and timing, you can get on top of it, which is really impressive. And I bet those 1-ups are a whole lot more useful in the beginning of the game instead of all the way at the end. Number 3. Now, after seeing the butterflies turn into 1-ups, I was convinced that almost anything could work. And so the next claim we will look at piqued my interest. And I was quite confident that it could work, because I read that stomping 8 Monty Moles in a row in Hazy Maze Cave without leaving the area or stomping a different type of enemy will yield an extra life. Now, this could be good for farming lives, but it could also be terrible. But still, if it works, it could be handy in a pinch. And so we went down to Hazy Maze Cave to test this one, and while dealing with these Monty Moles can be annoying as hell, we managed to do it. As you can see right here, it works. You get a 1-up from doing this. Now, one way you could make this whole process easier is by using the metal cap that can be found nearby. You can see right here how well that works. So maybe if you do it this way, it is a good method for farming lives. Number 2. Alright, so far we haven't covered any truly dark stuff, but I think it's about time we look at something more sinister. We all know about Koopa the Quick, right? The fastest turtle alive, who loves to challenge Mario to a race. But I saw something online about this guy that was quite, worrying. Because if it's true, then this game is a lot darker than I thought. Some said that if you pick up a bomb and throw it on Koopa the Quick as he runs by, you can actually kill him, which is insane. That can't be possible, right? But what if it is? What would happen? Well, let's find out. We decided to bombard him with bombs a couple of times to see if it would do anything to him. And while the explosion was impressive, Koopa the Quick didn't react to it at all, and it certainly didn't kill him. So it seems like you can't take him out, which means you have to race him. But luckily enough, beating him isn't too hard. Number 1. Now while we are at it, let's continue to look into more dark claims made by the internet, because I'm a bit of a sadistic man. And this next one is especially evil. Now we all know about the baby penguin that you're supposed to deliver to its mother. If you do this successfully, you get a star. However, some people decided that it would be fun to throw it off the ledge. However, does the mother react to this at all? Now sure, when you throw the one that's not her child, she doesn't care. But what about her actual child? Well, after getting the baby and throwing it off, we could see that she doesn't react at all to what you're doing. She doesn't care, which is a bit sad because it would have been a fun little detail in the game. However, if you give her the baby first and then take it away, she will get mad and chases you for a bit. So she does have some sort of a reaction. So I guess this myth is plausible? Even though no matter what you do, she doesn't do anything when you throw it off the ledge. But I will say there are some funny videos online of modded versions of the game where she goes completely ballistic. Now these were all the myths we had, but don't forget, if you have any feedback or myths that I should test, leave them below. Because if I pick yours, you will be featured in the video, and I read a lot of the comments. All of them if I can. So leave anything below, even if it's for a completely different game. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to do something more than just Tears of the Kingdom myth busting videos, so I thought, you know what, let's do a Super Mario 64 because it's fun. Yeah, if you have any ideas, leave them below. Usually I get a lot better suggestions from all of you guys in the comments, so please leave stuff below. And subscribe, click the bell button, and leave a like because it really helps. And then I hope to see all of you beautiful human beings in the next video. Yes, in the next beautiful video. Oh.